Welcome to a spark of awareness. We live in a time where we are constantly being stimulated, prompted by systems, by algorithms, by AI. But when we outsource our answers, we slowly give away our authority, our inner voice, our self-mastery. Conscious leadership has no shortcut, no hack, and it can only begin from within. It is the courage to stop escaping and to sit with what's alive and present inside, even when it's very uncomfortable, but that's where growth is. And this podcast is a space for that. This podcast is an evolution. And every week, I will share a 15-minute human prompt, live, non-performative. It is a moment of reflection drawn from my work in conscious leadership, from the journeys of the leaders I coach and accompany, and from what is moving in a collective film of what is humanity and leadership. I am Sophie, a conscious leadership coach and guide of transformation. I support leaders who are crossing the threshold right now from the old system of leadership, a legacy, into a deeper, more conscious way of being. If the traditional model no longer resonates, know that you are not alone, and that is your weekly practice. This is your time with your inner world. This is your weekly spark of awareness. Welcome. Welcome to a new episode of A Spark of Awareness. And continuing on the series of emotions, so if you have missed the previous episode, I'm giving more context about emotions at work and the unconscious or suppressed emotions and how they can manifest to very undesirable behaviors and toxic behaviors at work. That's why I'm recording a series on this topic, because it's coming up quite a lot in my coaching. And so the second emotion that I want to examine today, which is also very unconscious, is shame. Shame or guilt, but in the same way, it is the emotion of something we've done that we regret, that we want to hide, and that we try to kind of, not acknowledge, but everyone can see it. So why it's such a sneaky emotion, shame, because, and it manifests quite differently for men and women, so I'll also cover that. It is not an easy emotion to locate, but it is also very damaging when it happens. So for women, the main behavior around shame I've seen, it's more self-shame and guilt. Like all the basically negative self-talk and voices. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. I've done this, but it's like all the self-critique. It's a lot of self-bashing and it's a lot of self-shame. So nothing is good enough. So for women, how usually shame manifests, it's actually more self-shame and self-blame. For example, what I've heard often is like, okay, I've done really wrong here. I was not good enough. I was not strong enough. I was just not enough. And so I failed. I did this, I did that. So there's a lot of self-critique. And women, I have to say, sabotage themselves quite a lot before they even start. They have an idea and they think this is stupid. What would others think of me? What if I fail? And then they just kill the idea. So that's usually how I see the shame manifest. And also over apologizing, saying sorry for whatever happens, even things that women have not done, have not initiated, have not, As a contrast, we have many men also with carrying their level of shame who are not apologizing because there are other people apologizing for their own shortcoming. So I see also for a lot of men some shame that they hide and they bury, not recognizing whether in public or even to themselves the things that they have done may be wrong, the things that have caused harm to others. So the usual behavior I would see would be to over-justify, over-explain, explain why that was important to do an action that maybe damage many people along the process, like firing without a word, making hasty decisions, not updating the group, and still finding justification for that. What's really under the surface is shame, because deep down, in those two cases, men, women, admitting that we may have been wrong, that we may not be enough, that we are not perfect, is the shame, the shame, and the shame of being seen with that. And so what's really under playing in the background for this shame, it's a deep belief, not conscious once again, that you're not lovable as you are. Because if you did something wrong, that means you're not perfect. If you are not enough, that means you're not perfect. And if you're not perfect, that means you're not worthy of love. And if we go really far here, if you are not worthy of love or you're not loved, you're not safe. And if you are not safe, you're going to die. By the way, behind all those emotions, there's fear to die. So you can always track back. It's a fear to die. So why that is relevant and why it's important for you to be conscious about that is whether you own your shame or not, you take responsibility. People will see it anyway. People will feel it. People will know when you have done something you're not congruent, you're not aligned, and that breaks trust. I have worked with managers who've done really, really harmful things to me, to the teams I work with, without being aware of it. And there was no repair, no acknowledgement of harm done. I'm not saying that they didn't have a reason to take action and that had consequences that hurt me, but still acknowledging that something you can do with good intention can cause harm. It's very damaging for the people receiving it. For example, you fired one day without notice, and then you still have company or managers who can hide behind justification. We had to do that without acknowledging that it's quite brutal for the person receiving the notice, without understanding, without notice, and having to leave immediately. Without repair, without acknowledgement, first, it's very traumatizing for the person at the receiving end. And also it breaks trust, not only for the person who have suffered from this hidden shame and not taking responsibility, but for everyone who stays. And it creates then a culture that is unsafe and that lives with fear. So yes, you should actually pay attention to the shame you carry as a leader, because that's the shame that you carry also with your teams and everyone. And this is the underlying culture that exists. And as leaders, we are modeling the culture that we are in. So if you really want a culture that is healthy and where people collaborate, are transparent, are direct, you have to embody those values. There's no shortcut. There's no workaround. You have to embody those values. So that means you also need to examine all your unconscious emotions. And shame for me is also a very familiar feeling, because I have had quite a lot of shame throughout my life. Shame of being an immigrant, shame of because my parents coming from Vietnam, fleeing the Vietnam War, came to France. I felt I was always off. I was like the only Asian at school, the only one like this. So I felt odd most of my life. So I had a lot of shame about myself. And so it created stories and narratives in the places I've worked and in the way I led even. It was leading by rebellion, because I'm different. I want to lead and I'm going to be the rebel. And then I led team this way, where it created that separation and polarization, sometimes with the top management, which was not helpful. I had shame also of being a woman at times, because I felt it was so much safer to be among men, and I didn't feel safe being a woman. So what I did, instead of owning my shame and taking responsibility, I also shamed other women. And in a way, it's a kind of full circle, where today I'm working so deeply and so intimately with women with Orin, because I have examined those parts of me. I have reclaimed my shame, and I have reintegrated those parts of me, the feminine parts. So then I'm not shaming other women to be women, but actually took care of my own shame of being and feeling as a woman, my feminine part. And how do you move from shame? So I'll separate two cases here. One is self-shame, and the other is like shame, like guilt. So in the first case, if you are finding yourself self-shaming a lot, blaming yourself, it's self-hate and it's self-damage. And it's also probably damage to others. It's not a good energy to yourself. And the repair here is actually forgiveness. It's forgiveness to yourself. It's forgiveness to what you've done. Forgiveness where you were not perfect, when you're not perfect. Forgiveness where there are parts of you you don't like. And you're looking for someone externally to like those parts you don't like about yourself. This is an endless path. You will never find someone who will love you unconditionally, or some part of you unconditionally, to the way you expect. That's why it's so broken, because we do everything to not be seen and confront ourselves, but the work is actually to deal with ourselves, self-talk. How can you talk to yourself in a loving way? Imagine the most shameful part of yourself, the most hateful part of yourself. She or he is 7 years old. You as an adult, would you tell them, oh, you've done this? This is not looking good. You sing, doesn't sound right. You should not sing. This is very damaging. This is very discouraging. But somehow when we think of a younger child, we have a tenderness in us to speak with a lot of more kindness and more compassion. Can you find the compassion in yourself to talk to yourself, you're 7 years old, even maybe younger, in a kind way, in a loving way? That's the repair, and that's a daily practice. And yes, we have those things that are practiced like daily affirmation. I can tell you they're not bullshit, because we generate what we think. So when you think all the time that you are not worthy, you will start to act as you're not worthy, and you will start to see the whole world as you are not worthy. When you change the narrative and you start to repeat to yourself, you deserve love. This 7 years old that was criticized, shamed, ridiculed, now today you take care of that child in you, deserves love. So then you walk in the world thinking, people want something good for me. They will not come after me. They don't want to criticize. They want to help me. And suddenly, the same behavior, the same event, the same action can have a very different interpretation. So the quality of your thoughts are very important to define the quality of how you feel about yourself and your well-being. So work with it with intention. And the other part of shame, when you've done something wrong to others, and others were not happy, maybe they went public and then started to complain about you. I have had also people that I had to let go with in my previous teams. That's part of the job. I did my best to transmit, convey compassion, to help them out with the capacity that I had at the time, and the availability and understanding. And they were not happy. Some went really, berserk online and then started to talk about it and complain about it. And I decided not to react to it. But I decided to forgive myself, and I decided to forgive them. And if I have caused any harm, which sometimes I recognized it was very impactful for them to hear the news to leave, is to apologize. So the best thing you can do if you are shameful of an action that you've done with someone is to apologize. And a very simple way to apologize in a way that is repairing is, I am sorry. Period. Not, I am sorry, I did this because, I am sorry, but, just, I am sorry. Silence. And that is what people need to hear when you want repair. They want acknowledgement. And if you find the courage, the strength, the integrity in yourself to be able to apologize and discerning your part, that you've done things for a reason, that you can give yourself compassion, that you didn't want to harm somebody, but you don't need to justify or be witnessed by someone else to actually make it true, then it's going to be very impactful, powerful for you and for the other person where harm was done. So shame, the only way to repair it is forgiveness to yourself and to others, and apologize. Some resources I will share in the show notes because there's quite a lot here in the topic of shame and how do we free ourselves from that. There's also other energetic work, movement work. It's very much stored actually in the hips for women. But if you are interested in that, want to read more about that, the best way to practice it is what you learn in actually couple counseling. So I'll share some resources in how to repair. Learning how to repair. So you learn the tools of how to repair with someone or yourself, the way you talk to yourself, or non-violent communication if you're familiar with it. And those are the way that help practice compassion and a different language that is not aggressive, that where you continue to shame yourself and shame. You have shame and you continue to self-shame, so you get out of a loop. So as usual, we're going to close this practice with some grounding meditation. I invite you to join me, feeling your 2 feet on the ground and really grounding with your feet, so anchoring. And connect with your breathing, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And as we connected today on the topic of shame, and all the emotions have a location in the body, the shame is where is your root chakra. So if you don't know where your root chakra is, it's at the very bottom where you have your genitals, the bottom part of your body and under the belly. And this is where you have the sexual energy. This is where the shame is stored. So connect with that part of yourself. And is it free? Is it moving freely? Or is it like, do you feel already shameful by connecting with it? So again, through this observation, body awareness, practice observing your body and sensation in the body or absence of it. And stay there. Stay connected to your root chakra. What starts to move? Feeling of shame, observe without judgment and thoughts. And one last deep breath together. Deep inhale through the nose. And hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And release, exhale from the mouth. And breathe through your whole body, traveling from the heart, the solar plexus, the belly to your root chakra. Thank you for joining me in this meditation and reflection on shame. I'll continue next week on the next emotion that I'll cover, which is sadness. Have a great week. Thank you for tuning in into this weekly reflection, the weekly spark of awareness. After this episode, I invite you to take a few moments with yourself, even just 15 minutes to sit with what resonated, to breathe, and to notice what is shifting inside. This is a practice, a discipline of presence, truth, and self-connection. If this work speaks to you, I accompany leaders in one-on-one journeys and group experiences of transformation, supporting them as they cross the threshold into a truer and freer way of leading and living. If you feel called to explore this path, I would love to hear your story, and let's connect. Sending you love and courage, and have a great week ahead. This is my spark of awareness.